Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this online service of Quimper Unitarian Universalist Fellowship, a loving, spirited, and ever more inclusive community. Whoever you are, wherever you're from, whomever you love, and whatever your faith tradition, you're welcome here. My name is Kate Kinney, and I'm the assistant minister here at QUUF. I'd like to begin this service by acknowledging that the water, land, and shorelines here in Port Townsend are the traditional territory of the S'Klallam and Chimacum peoples. We honor and acknowledge our Indigenous members and neighbors and vow to help restore and sustain their homelands. In a moment, we'll light the chalice, but first let us settle our minds and calm our hearts with the ringing of our chime. It is good to be together. Now let us join voices for our call to community with our own choir, the Vaccinated Voices, who will lead us in hymn number 55, Dark of Winter.
Dark of winter, soft and still, your quiet calm surrounds me. Let my thoughts go where they will, ease my mind profoundly, and then my soul will sing a song, a blessed song of love eternal. Gentle darkness, soft and still, bring your quiet to me. Darkness, soothe my weary eyes, that I may see more clearly. When my heart with sorrow cries, comfort and caress me, and then my soul may hear a voice, a still small voice of love eternal. Darkness when my fears arise, let your peace flow through me.
Thank you, Pat Rodgers and the Vaccinated Voices. It is now time for our chalice lighting ritual. Please join me and our worship assistant, Cecilia Flickinger. We light this chalice giving thanks for the darkness and the light. The darkness gives us time for rest, longing, and time to see the stars. And we have holiday lights and candles that help us openly to act in hope and compassion. In thanks for this time of darkness and light, we light our chalice. We are entering a time of year where the earth grows colder, the animals begin to hibernate, and the days grow continually shorter. We've also come to the time when we light a new candle each Sunday until Christmas Eve. The flame of each new candle reminds us that something is happening now, but something more is still to come. The light of these candles grows brighter and brighter each Sunday, guiding us towards deeper faith, shared joy, more love, and increased hope. In prior weeks, we lit the candle of faith, joy, and love. This morning, we will light our fourth candle, the candle of hope. Will you come forward, Sonia and Violet?
We light this fourth candle for hope, for strength and courage, dreams and visions, for caterpillars and seeds, for new days and new ways, for all the things that help us choose to keep going and doing what we know to be right and true. We light this candle for hope.
Thank you, Sonia and Violet. I'd now like to welcome Bo Olgren, our Director of Family Ministry, who will share our time for all ages. Bo?
Good morning, everyone. As a part of Hope Sunday, I was thinking about the times when it's not so easy to have hope. And I was particularly thinking of when I am feeling overwhelmed with the world, how I turn to the helpers and think about all the people that show up when we need it. And that made me think of this book, Most People, which I'm excited to share with you because this is by Michael Leanna and illustrated by Jennifer Morris. And it's not about how people should be, but it's about the fact that the world is filled with lots of people that are trying to do good things, and that we are surrounded by most people wanting to make the world a better world. Most people love to smile. Most people love to laugh. Most people love to see other people smile and laugh too. Most people are great people. Most people want to help when they see someone crying. Most people want to help when they see someone who's in trouble. Most people want to make other people, even strangers, feel good. Most people are very good people. Sometimes people do bad things. They yell mean things, they lie and steal, they bully and hurt and destroy. But most of the time, most people do kind things. If you could line up all the people who want to do good, they would stretch from here to the tallest mountain and back. When we hurt someone's feelings or make a choice that we regret, most people are forgiving and understanding. Most people love the earth, and most people love watching things grow. Most people who are mad or sad could use a helping hand, and most people want to help. When you see something bad happening, you may soon see someone trying to help. The helper might even be you. Someone is almost always there being kind, because being kind is what most people want to be. Most people like to run and dance and play or share stories with someone they know or snuggle up with someone they love. Most people like a kind word. Most people like thinking good thoughts about others. Most people care about others. Most people glow when they hear or say, "I love you." Most people in the world know that most people are very good, and every person deserves love. When you are feeling down, remember that most people want to help you, and we are surrounded by a lot of goodness in this world.
Thank you, Bo. What we'd like to do now is acknowledge and welcome those of you who are visiting us this morning. You are invited to say hello in the comments section and tell us your name and where you're from. The chat section can be found below or on the right side of the video when it is out of full screen, and we'd love to hear from you. We also hope you'll join us for a virtual coffee hour in our Fellowship Hall Zoom room. If you don't have that link, it will be posted in the chat section at the end of the service. And if you find the service useful or inspirational, hopefully both, please share the link with your friends and family. So welcome, everyone. We're glad you're with us today. We will now receive the offering. Today, our collection will go towards the Ministerial Discretionary Fund here at QUF. The money in this fund goes towards meeting the emergency needs of our members. There have been a lot of emergencies this year, so I hope you will consider giving generously. If you'd like to donate today, you have 3 options. Text the amount you'd like to give to the number now showing at the bottom of the screen. Go to our website, QUF.org, and click on the giving link, or simply mail a check to QUF. Just remember to put Minister's Fund in the memo line. We will now gratefully receive your offering as we listen to Jules, a beautiful 3-part chant written and performed by Barbara McAfee.
Every time I go into the darkness, I return with fistfuls of jewels. Every time I go into the darkness, I return with fistfuls of jewels. Every time I go into the depths all around me, I return stars with brilliance above. Every time I go into the depths all around me, I return stars with brilliance above. Every time I go into the depths all around me, I return stars with brilliance above. Every time I go into the depths all around me, I reach stars with brilliance above. Every time I go into the depths all around me, I reach stars with brilliance above. Every time I go into the depths all around me, I reach stars with brilliance above. Every time I go into the depths all around me, I reach stars with brilliance above. Every time I go into the depths all around me, I reach stars with brilliance above.
I have 2 quick announcements today. First, don't forget to swing by QUF today, Sunday, December 19th, from 1 to 3 for our holiday gathering. Our elf squad will be set up in front of QUUF this Sunday with gifts, music, and hot drinks to share with you. There's no need to get out of your car. We'll hand you your goodies through your car windows. Vaccinated and masked folks will also have the option of coming inside QUUF to enjoy our sanctuary and holiday decorations. And secondly, please note that there will be a winter solstice service on Zoom led by Katy Taylor. Please check your Friday update for the link or contact the office and they will send it to you. We will now share our joys and sorrows, recognizing that our personal joys and sorrows are only a fragment of the joys and sorrows of the larger community of life. And thus, we place this first stone, thinking in particular of all those who help our children grow in hope, especially parents, teachers, and healthcare workers who help our children gain strength in body and spirit. We also remember the families that have lost their homes and loved ones during the tornadoes that hit our country. And now within the congregation. This first candle is for Kristin Asta, who is having back surgery at Swedish on January 10th. Previous attempts to handle the pain haven't worked, so surgery has been scheduled. Kristin will be hospitalized for 4 days. She has a sister and a son in the area, but may need additional help. She or her sister, Barbara Aldrich, will keep us posted. The second candle is for Grace Coda, who recently moved into San Juan Villa. She is adjusting well, but would love to have visitors. San Juan Villa prefers that you call them before visiting so that they can limit the number of visitors in the building at any one time so that everyone is safe. Grace says to wake her up if she's sleeping. She'll really love to see you. This next candle is a candle of healing for Julia Cochran, who has to go to the emergency room with a bad case of diverticulitis. She is on antibiotics, one of which makes her feel quite sick. So Julia will be out of commission for a while. We send her our healing thoughts and prayers to you, Julia, that your infection heals quickly and thoroughly. This last candle of concern is for Terry DeBow, a longtime friend of QUUF and a member of our Native Connections Action Group. Terry has returned to Port Townsend from Nia Bay and is desperate to find housing for her and her gentle, quiet dog. She can pay rent. If you have a room you could rent, please contact Connie Ross. In the meantime, let us hold Terry in our hearts. We have 2 birthdays to celebrate today. The first one is for Anne Marie Mende, whose birthday was on December 14th. This next one is for Terry Wagner, whose birthday is this Tuesday, December 21st. So happy birthday, Anne-Marie and Terry. And now we place a final stone, holding in our hearts the joys and sorrows I've just shared, but also thinking of such joys and sorrows among us that are unexpressed but of no less importance. I invite you now into a moment of silence.
Thank you, Pat. Our reading this morning is Blessing of Hope by Jan Richardson. So may we know the hope that is not just for someday, but for this day, here, now, in this moment that opens to us. Hope not made of wishes, but of substance. Hope made of sinew and muscle and bone. Hope that has breath and a beating heart. Hope that will not keep quiet and be polite. Hope that knows how to holler when it is called for. Hope that knows how to sing when there seems little cause. Hope that raises us from the dead, not someday, but this day, every day, again and again and again. Katy Taylor, Heidi Mattern, and Kristin Smith will now perform Tending the Spark.
And we will care for each other as the world around us unravels, and we will tend to the spark of hope that lives within our grieving hearts. And we are here now in this present moment, lifting our voices and hearts. And we are here now, we have come together, we are tending the spark of hope. Oh, may it grow. And we will care for each other as the world around us unravels, and we will tend to the spark of hope that lives within our beating hearts. And we are here now in this present moment, lifting our voices and hearts. And we are here now, we have come together, we are tending the spark of hope. Oh, may it grow. Other as the world around us unravels, and we will tend to the spark of hope that lives within our grieving hearts. And we are here now in this present moment, lifting our voices and hearts. And we are here now, we have come together, we are tending the spark of hope. Oh, may it grow. And we will care for each other.
A few months ago, I was with friends and I was asked the question, where's your hope? And I blurted out something like, well, we've messed up this earth and I hope that the wolves are okay because they don't deserve what we have done with the environment. My hope is that the wolves will do a better job without us. Well, it became quiet, and then the conversation quickly turned towards someone else. And I had to ponder, was that really what I believed? Now, mind you, species have gone extinct, and I do not believe that humans are at the top of the pedestal, or that we have more rights than any other species on this fragile planet. Yet my gut reaction to do what I said made me sad. Do I really believe that we have passed beyond the hope button on human survival? My hope answer was not what I would have replied even several years ago. Are things really so bleak for the human species? In truth, it does not seem that the light is making much progress. A look at the world reveals the rise of strong-armed governments, a politicized U.S. Supreme Court, a global rise between those who have the economic means to survive and those who do not, the huge shift in human migration as communities move in search of stability, a crisis with gun violence rising in the United States, a racial crisis as Americans grapple with who the we you people really are, a climate crisis that fluctuates between horrific forest fires, droughts, and untamed flooding, hurricanes and tornadoes, the power grid failures, Afghanistan's fall to the Taliban, and add to all of this the ever-evolving pandemic that has killed over 5.25 million human beings. And this pandemic has changed how and where we work and how our children learn. And there was even a wildfire by Niagara Falls and also in the Arctic. How can this be? Add on one's personal tragedies, health concerns, and the general malaise, and our hope scale can drop even more. We need a push of hope to lift us to a higher consciousness so that we can break the impasse in which we are all swimming. Yes, we are living in a time of national and global brutality and despair. And yet, there are amazing examples of individual and community action. Actions that illustrate 14th century Julian of Norwich's saying that all shall be well in all manner of things shall be well. During her lifetime, Julian experienced the first and second waves of the Black Death in England, which historians estimate to have killed 40 to 60% and then 20% of the population, respectively. A plague that sickened Julian and may have taken members of her intimate family. And yet, Julian stands as a stellar figure of hope. So the question of where do we gain and find our hope is a legitimate one. It might be a good question for discussion with friends and family during this holiday season. Where do you find your hope? And can we as individuals and as a society survive without it? And I'm not talking about a Pollyanna hope, but one that's really rooted in this time and in this place. As I add water to my paperweights, wrap Christmas presents, call old friends during this holiday season, bake cookies for my neighbors, feed my birds, and yes, leave out peanuts for my wee yard squirrel, I'm practicing some form of hope. But are the daily rituals enough for a crisis time, a time when the world seems to be at 6s and 7s? So I raise the question, is hope a noun or a verb? We are living in a time of fear, and fear can lead us to hope and can lead us to community. And it is in community that we begin to realize that we don't have to solve problems by ourselves alone. But do we expect the community to simply ask us to tend this gift of hope, to hold it, keep it, and never let it out of our sight? Can hope be a noun, a he, she, or it that we possess? Or is hope an active verb? Is it something that we engage with and actively create? In creating hope, we're forcing ourselves to work on a higher plane. The writer Anne Lamott talks about her lifelong urge to physically jump off life-threatening places, the Empire State Building or bridges or a balcony overlooking Mardi Gras celebrations in New Orleans. And after fighting this urge for years, she finally got the advice that changed her whole perspective. A Coptic minister invited her to give a lecture at the American University in Cairo and to preach at his church. At dusk, he drove her up a hill that overlooks the homes of 30,000 garbage workers. And as she overlooked the scene, she cleared her throat and said to the minister, I have to tell you something sort of embarrassing. I promised my psychiatrist I would tell whomever I was with when I was in high places that since childhood, whenever I'm very, very high up, I think about jumping. And without missing a beat, he waved away her concern and said, oh, who doesn't? And it was at that moment that Anne could see straight again, that she could feel hope. She was in this human condition with others who were just as human, just as flawed as she was. We humans are in this together, and we learn to act together to move beyond our fears. Anne continued talking about hope and described her dearly beloved quirky aunt who lost 2 children. And Anne says that this dear aunt taught her that people can hold onto hope by simply being with others, walking on a beach, going to a bookstore, sharing ice cream. So little bits of life and grace, time, habits, duties, a phone call, all filter into the seed in the concrete. And that seed pushes up through no matter what, because this is how hope is constructed. It is foundational in order to live. Now that is the vision of a poet, but what about those of us who want facts and figures? Well, the analyst C.R. Snyder gives several characteristics of hopeful persons, and he does this with many tests and charts. These people appear to have optimism, perceptions of control over one's life, a preference for competition, high self-esteem, and they are not likely to manifest hostility, fear, or guilt, anxiety, or depression. Well, truthfully, after reading this list of personal characteristics, I began to feel anxious. In fact, a bit of hostility was growing in me. How does one ever get that much positive energy? On further reading, the author does give strategies for gaining hope, and one spoke to me more than others. It is to work in partnership, a relationship that makes it possible to reach goals that produce a caring and yet active environment where things get done. One partner helps the other and vice versa. Often this process is directed toward a mutual goal, and at times it may be directed to help one of the partners to achieve a goal. In other words, simple reciprocity. And in some ways, the scientist is saying the same thing as Anne Lamott. We are all in this connected thing called hope. It's hard and sometimes impossible to do it all alone. And there are people on the journey who pave the road for us. For me, one of those folks is Jane Goodall. She talked to some students of mine, and it was amazing to watch how one human being could give off all these sparks that kindle others. Now at age 87, she has published a new book titled The Book of Hope, and it's a long interview that takes place over several years. It stopped and started as the pandemic swirled around our world. And if you could use a hope jab besides our vaccine jab, it might be a good read for the holidays. Jane says that hope is a human survival trait, and without it we perish. So hope is one of the most crucial aspects of our human story. And in the interview, Jane gives 4 reasons for hope. The first is the amazing human intellect. Jane says that the human intellect is the part of the brain that reasons and solves problems, and that language led to the explosion in the human language, in human intellect. Language, goal setting, and hope all arise in the same part of the brain. Our brain gives us the ability to choose. She goes on to say that humans may be the only animal who will perform an altruistic action, even though it may harm us. So our brains allows us to choose, and this is particularly important on the issue of the continuance of the human race. We have a say in the matter. Jane states that if we combine our intellect along with common sense and compassion towards future generations, we may get ourselves out of the mess we are in. Hope. Jane's second reason for hope is the resilience of nature. She shares a survival story about 9/11 and a calorie pear tree. The tree had been discovered by a cleanup worker a month after the collapse of the towers, and the tree was caught between two cement blocks. All that was left was half a trunk that was charred black with roots that were broken, and there was only one live branch. The tree was on the way to the dump when a young woman begged to keep it and brought it to a nursery in the Bronx. Now, the tree is now alive and is well and is in the 9/11 Memorial Museum. In the spring, this amazing tree is covered with flowers. Hope. The third reason is the power of young people, and Jane talks about the program that she helped start called Roots and Shoots. It is now spread all over the world and empowers young people, despite their poverty or lack of education, to care for our fragile earth. And Jane is proud of the Roots and Shoots group on the Pine Ridge Reservation. The children learn how to plant using the traditional Hidatsa way of creating the three sister plots, combining corn, beans, and squash to maintain minimal impact on the environment. Hope. And the fourth reason is the indomitable human spirit. This is another way to describe great spiritual power. And humans can derive this power in many ways, and it sparks our souls. When asked if she can name people who illustrate the powerful human spirit, she names Martin Luther King, who fought against income inequality and discrimination. Nelson Mandela, for his fight against apartheid. Ken Saro-Wiwa, a Nigerian who fought against land pollution. Winston Churchill, who inspired Britain to fight against Nazi Germany. Mahatma Gandhi, who helped win against British colonial rule, and Jesus, who taught a path of love. Hope. Well, I loved Jane dearly, and I could not leave the list of people of hope to 6 men. So I'm going to supplement the list with a few of my hope dolls. They are hanging on my hope-filled Christmas tree. I collect them, and tit for tat have selected 6. Sojourner Truth, an advocate for civil and women's rights. Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who spent most of her career as an advocate of gender equality and women's rights. Sacagawea, not because of her travels with Lewis and Clark, but because of her trust in her native people and their wisdom, and her ability to do everything Lewis and Clark could do while bearing a child and navigating an abusive spouse. Malala, who is a global icon advocating for the education of all girls. Greta Thunberg, who organized a world youth movement to save the planet against climate change. And yes, Jane Goodall, who has spent her life teaching us about animal consciousness, global climate health, and a path towards hope. I open my list with global horrors. And yes, they are substantial and overpowering, but despair has been in this world since the very start of human consciousness. If you remember the myth about Pandora, she was given a jug, a present from Zeus, a wedding present, and one condition that she never opened the jug. But I get why she did it. She's so curious. One week before Christmas, when I was in middle school, my parents were at work, and so I searched in all the closets to find my present. I opened my future Christmas present, was very disappointed, rewrapped it, and thus had a gloomy Christmas morning. So yes, I get Pandora. She opened the jar, and what utter disappointment. All of the evil in the world escaped. Much worse than finding out your major Christmas present as a really ugly yellow sweater. All of life's miseries surrounded Pandora. She slammed the jar shut, and there was one thing left in the jar: hope. And so we hold on to it for all that we are worth, not out of false hope, but knowing that we humans, in conjunction with all nature, with our amazing intellect, with our spirited young people, and standing on the wisdom of our indomitable ancestors, we will give it our best shot, knowing that a community of hope surrounds us, and knowing that we may never have perfection or full closure, but that we'll be well enough. And knowing that the consciousness that we hold now as a species must be shed. There's a higher way of being besides raping the earth and closing our eyes to a spiritual path that honors all of nature. You and I are capable of a much larger spiritual vision than the one that holds us now, our country, and our world captive. Humankind has these changing moments when our consciousness shifts, and the message is clear. We do this for the survival of all that we know, all that we love, and all that we envision. Jane states that probably the question I'm asked more often than any other is, do we honestly believe that there is hope for our world, for the future of our children and grandchildren? And she says, I'm able to answer truthfully, yes. We're coming to the time of Advent. The translation of the word means to arrive or to come. What an amazing Christmas solstice gift that would be, the arrival of hope. Pandora's jar of hope could flood this anxious world of ours. By the way, the words arrive and hope are action verbs. It's really up to us. The path we have been walking up to this time is not viable. We are the advent of a new path, birthing a humanity that has the humility to see itself as one wee part of a much larger cosmos. But this vision we must choose. May it be so.
Touch
just about time to extinguish our chalice. But first, I'd like to remind you that Joseph Benarek will be in the pulpit next week. His sermon is called Washing the Holy Day Dishes. Please join us now in our chalice extinguishing words. We extinguish our flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, the fire of commitment, or the power of transformation. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. After the service, I hope you'll join us for our virtual coffee hour. What you can expect is to be placed in a Zoom room with one of our coffee hour hosts, who will facilitate personal check-ins as well as reflection questions on the sermon topic. I hope to see you there. But first, let us turn our attention to the Wild Rose Chorale, who will perform our postlude, The Winter's Night, under the direction of Leslie Lewis.